Hello and welcome to another in the series of Café Insights. I'm Andrew Vine, the founder and CEO of the Insight Bureau, and today I'm in conversation with Daniel Franklin from The Economist. Welcome to Singapore.
Thank you, Andrew. Nice to be with you here again.
Terrific. We haven't seen each other for about a year, but you come around to Singapore this time of the year with The Economist running one of the conferences.
Yes, we have a conference every year on global treasury leaders, which I actually really enjoy because I think corporate treasurers are fascinating people. They have to do serious business with the money, but they also have to be very aware of what's going on right around the world because it can affect their business in a big way. So I enjoy that. It's good to be here.
Well, your day job, of course, with The Economist, you are the executive editor, but you have been looking at America.
Yes, this past year has been full on United States, and obviously election year. After the election of Donald Trump, it's been an extraordinary time and a remarkable, surprising, intense year of politics in America.
I bet, yeah. And so what's on everybody's minds at the moment, of course, is what's next for not just America, but for the whole world. And, we were talking earlier and saying that it wasn't so long ago that it really was all about economics that really mattered. And these days, it really isn't. It's geopolitics. And Donald Trump's going to play a big role in that picture.
Yeah, well, it's always about economics too, but I think people have tended to underestimate the importance of geopolitics and the changes that can really make a big difference and are very difficult to put in a spreadsheet. But right now you can feel the world in almost every domain adjusting to the new reality of an America under a new Trump administration. So I think that's going to take a while to settle down, and it's going to be completely fascinating and at times a very bumpy ride, I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the American economy is concerned, despite all the allegations to the contrary, it's doing very well. America's economy is doing great.
Well, the economists call it the envy of the world, which I think is right. It's not how it feels to many Americans, plainly, because the economy was a big issue in the election campaign and people were blaming Biden administration, particularly for inflation. I think that's what really, really hurt them. But if you look at the growth, if you look at the dynamism of the big tech industries, particularly AI, America is doing phenomenally. And that's what Trump is going to inherit with the sort of turbocharge of probably tax cuts on the way and deregulation.
I'm sure it's an inequality thing in America that has touched on nerves, I imagine.
Well, that's always, the great strengths of America are often its greatest weaknesses as well, and the sort of toughness of the American system is something that gives it strength. But the underside of that is, for those who aren't benefiting from a strong economy, it's very difficult. But it gives America a robustness that has historically been very potent.
Yeah. And already we had the concerns over what's happening in Ukraine and the Middle East. Now, the Trump factor in all of that is quite unknown at this stage. We don't really have
Well, I think there's going to be a big focus on, first of all, who's he going to appoint? Who are going to be the people who are going to be running big foreign policy making roles, and that will tell us something. But I still think even once they're in place, there'll be an uncertainty which is actually going to suit Donald Trump a lot. I think this is exactly what he wants, is to keep people guessing, and it gives him leverage.
Yeah.
If he wants to go in, I think he said he'd solve the Ukrainian problem in a day. Well, we'll see. But it certainly gives him some advantages going into talks with other players on that front and also in the Middle East. So I think he starts with a very powerful negotiating position. Remains to be seen what happens when inevitably real life intervenes, and it tends to be quite hard to sort these incredibly knotty problems out.
Well, the other area of is around trade wars and things like that. Actually, when Donald Trump was being replaced by Joe Biden, a lot of people felt that, okay, maybe there'd be a relaxation, but it wasn't. In fact, under Biden, the
tariffs stayed in place. And the industrial policy was pretty heavy on both sides, but certainly Trump has promised to ramp up the tariffs, and I think he will. The question is, how much will he go as far as his rhetoric has suggested, which is very far, particularly with somewhere like China, or will he use it as much as a bargaining chip as an actual real policy lever? I suspect it'll be a bit of both, but the danger is that the rest of the world reacts with tit-for-tat tariffs and we find ourselves in a real trade war. So I think that is probably the front line of Trumpism, is the tariff war. He likes tariffs, and he makes no secret of that. He's very happy to wield them.
Just come from a conference in Hong Kong where people were talking about China and actually not as phased as I thought they would be.
Well, I think it's the way the world is, as you said. There wasn't as much of a disruption between the first Trump administration and the Biden administration in terms of China policy. I think it was Trump who reset the dial on China, and the Democrats belatedly sort of woke up to the challenge that China represented. I don't think it's as big of a shock now for China than it would have been, or than you might suspect, but it's still going to be bracing, I think, because the threat of much more vigorous policy is there.
So for businesses around the world, leaders leading their organisations across borders, all of these factors have got to be taken into consideration. Is this probably the chief worry that keeps people awake at night, do you think?
Well, not everybody would think it was a worry. Some would be relishing it and thinking this is a great environment, but it's certainly
the uncertainty.
I think it's the chief adjustment. It's definitely the chief adjustment. But then I think you have to twin it with the extraordinary pace of technological change and the adjustment on that front as well. So I think these twin things of geopolitics, everybody has to have their risk radar very attuned to that. It's now blindingly obvious with the Trump administration coming in, and technology, particularly AI, and what it really means for business. And I think most businesses are still trying to really work that out. They may have experiments, they may have fledgling AI strategies, but what it really means for them is still something they're trying very hard to stay in front of.
I would echo that. The work that I do with the Insight Bureau, placing speakers into conferences and events and internal briefings as well. The themes are all around economics, geopolitics, it's around technology and innovation. It's also around people, and how people are going to be prepared for a new environment in which to do business, factors that are shaping their businesses, and concern that people are up to speed with all the fast change that's coming around. That's what we're definitely seeing. What we've worked on together is very much the big picture, and I think sometimes it's a real asset to be able to pull the strings together. So it's not just about the politics, it's just about the economics, it's just about the technology, but you're able to pull the threads together to help build a picture. And that's what we've done successfully.
So I think that's right. And when you talk about the people, it's one thing that strikes me in the conversations, the sort of events I do here and elsewhere, talking to people in various roles in business, is how almost whatever the role at the senior level, it's becoming much more 360, much more challenging. It's not enough, if it ever was, to be a great specialist in your particular area. You've got to be really up to speed with the forces that could be changing your world of business if you want to do the job properly and have a real influential voice in the top councils of your business.
I suppose that always has to be tempered a little bit in terms of the actual time frame that chief executives and other leaders have. I mean, they think they're going to be in the role just for the next 4 or 5 years, and that might be their horizon, but organisations need actually to be looking much further ahead in terms of where the business is going to be in 5 to 10 years' time, not just the next 5.
Yes, but the long term, I spend a lot of time looking at the world in 2050 and the long term future, which I think is really helpful. By the way, I think it sort of helps you see today clearly if you get rid of your short term horizon and start really looking further beyond. So I think that's helpful. But for actual practical purposes, succession planning and so on, it's also I think important for businesses to be having people around the senior management table who can think beyond their particular functions and do have a strategic view as well.
You've been involved in some other events with The Economist. I know the Oceans Forum. So you take close interest in environment and sustainability issues, always have done. This is obviously another angle that business executives are really taking on board.
It is.
In real terms,
but you know, look what's just happened in America. I mean, this is not something that is going to be front and center of a Trump administration. So I think that's another big question that people who are concerned about that very big transition to cleaner energy and the effect on businesses of all sorts is, well, does it now slow down because the Trump administration in the White House? Does it change? Where's the global leadership going to come from now? And I think the answer is going to be a very mixed one, quite a complicated one of lots of business saying, well, this is strategically still very important for us. We're still going to do this transition to electric vehicles, for example, but maybe it's going to happen slightly more slowly at the global level than we thought.
Companies are going to look at their stakeholders in terms of their shareholders, their employees, their customers, and what kind of pressure they're going to be under from them too.
Yeah, well, even Donald Trump, you know, he looks at somewhere like Texas, but he's very much in favour of drill, baby, drill, and you'd think that Texas would be in the forefront of that, which it could be, but it's also the leading state in America for renewables. So, you know, it's a complex picture. And he's got Elon Musk, of course, as his chum, who's going to be pushing his electric vehicles.
Daniel, it's great to see you again here in Singapore. You're back off to London later this week, and it's been quite a lot of time in America these days. So, good luck with all your travels.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Great to be here, and we'll keep the conversation going.